It began quietly. A single document slipped across a desk in Ouagadougou. On the surface, just paper. But beneath the ink, a storm. Stamped, confidential. Signed by Donald J. Trump, then President of the United States. The demand was blunt. Hand over 60% of Burkina Faso's gold and oil to American corporations. Do it in 48 hours, or face consequences that would cripple the nation. Sanctions, blockades, isolation, even sabotage from within. For Washington, this was nothing new. This was the same old playbook. Threats, ultimatums, and control. But this time, they miscalculated. Because the man reading that document wasn't a puppet. He wasn't a polished politician trained to bow. He was a soldier, a fighter. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, 35 years old, battle-hardened, carrying scars from the front lines, and carrying the hopes of millions on his shoulders. They expected fear. Instead, they got fire. Traoré read the letter once, then again. His jaw tightened. His generals watched in silence, waiting for his reaction. Finally, he set the document down. Slowly, he leaned back in his chair, eyes burning, and said only one line.
So that's their price for peace? Slavery in a suit and tie.
From that moment, everything changed. News of the ultimatum leaked. Whispers at first, then headlines, then outrage. African media exploded. Radios in Bamako, Kinshasa, Lagos, and Johannesburg repeated the story again and again. Trump demanding 60% of Burkina Faso's resources. Trump threatening an African nation with economic strangulation. The world braced for Traoré to fold. That had always been the pattern. Pressure from Washington, compliance from the global south. But not this time. Instead of bowing, Traoré stood. He summoned his intelligence chief, his commanders, his closest advisors. He gave sharp, decisive orders. Lock down the oil fields, secure the gold convoys, cut off foreign contractors from all sensitive data. No outsider would touch Burkina Faso's resources again. By midday, he was on national television. No glossy backdrop, no rehearsed performance, just a soldier in uniform. One hand on the flag, the other on a folder stamped U.S. threat.
To the people of Burkina Faso and to our African brothers and sisters, an offer has been made. To sell our oil, our gold, our honor, in exchange for fear. To those behind this insult, to Mr. Trump and his backers, you have misjudged us. We are not Libya, we are not Iraq, we are Burkina Faso, and we will not bow.
He paused. The silence was electric. You could almost hear the heartbeat of a nation holding its breath. Then he delivered the words that would echo across the continent.
You gave us 48 hours. Here is our response. You now have 48 hours to take your greed, your threats, and your arrogance and leave African soil.
The broadcast cut. The screen went black. And then the streets erupted. Cheers, drums, dancing, tears. In villages and cities, people poured out into the night, chanting his name, waving flags, singing freedom songs long buried by fear. Across Africa, phones lit up with one message: Burkina Faso has said no. But joy carried danger. Washington was stunned. Boardrooms at ExxonMobil and Chevron lit up with frantic calls. At CIA headquarters, alarms sounded. Traoré hadn't just refused, he had gone public. That was unforgivable. The pushback began at once. Western media branded him unstable, reckless, a dictator in the making. Social media flooded with fake scandals, carefully engineered by bots. Private military contractors slipped near Burkina Faso's borders. The threat of sabotage was growing by the hour, but Traoré had seen it coming. He wasn't alone. Within days, allies arrived. From Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta. From Niger, General Abdourahmane Chiani. From Guinea, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. 3 men who had walked the same road, who bore the same scars, who carried the same dream. They stood beside him, shoulder to shoulder, and declared,
"If you touch Burkina Faso, you touch all of us."
For the first time in modern history, Africa had its own shield. Not a treaty signed in Paris or Washington, not a promise made in secret, but a brotherhood forged in fire. The AES, an African answer to NATO. Meanwhile, the balance of power shifted. China and Russia saw the opening. They didn't arrive with ultimatums. They came with tools, engineers, technology, weapons. A Chinese delegation landed with blueprints for a refinery to be built in 90 days. Russian cargo planes touched down with anti-drone systems to guard the oil fields. The ultimatum that was supposed to isolate Burkina Faso had backfired. Instead of weakness, Traoré found strength. Instead of isolation, he discovered unity. And the people, they felt it. In Ouagadougou's markets, vendors raised their voices in pride. In Dakar's classrooms, children whispered his name like a legend. Across Africa, a new phrase began to spread. Our resources, our future, our fight. But as his name grew, so did the danger. Trump erupted on Twitter in all caps. Traoré just made the biggest mistake of his life. Africa will pay. Satellites shifted over West Africa. U.S. naval ships edged closer to the Gulf of Guinea. Behind closed doors, contractors whispered about regime change. Still, Traoré did not flinch. At dawn, he called the National Assembly into an emergency session. For hours, behind closed doors, they debated, argued, shouted, and then, finally, they emerged. A resolution had been passed. All oil and gold reserves are hereby nationalized and permanently protected from foreign corporate ownership. By sunrise, letters were delivered to every Western company operating in Burkina Faso. Pack your bags, your time here is over. The response was instant. Streets filled with music and chants. Young people posted videos holding up coins, fuel cans, even handfuls of soil, repeating one phrase: "We protect what's ours." Burkina Faso had done the unthinkable. It rejected America's ultimatum. It nationalized its resources, and it lived to tell the story. For Washington, it was humiliation. For Africa, it was inspiration. And for Captain Ibrahim Traoré, it was only the beginning. Because this was never just about oil, never just about gold. This was about something far more dangerous to the old order, an idea. The idea that Africa could stand tall, that it could own its destiny, that it could say no and mean it. And once an idea like that spreads, no empire, no ultimatum, no threat can ever put it back in the shadows. This wasn't just defiance. This wasn't just survival. This was Africa's boldest rejection yet.